Okay, recording has started.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our July monthly data reporting call. It's hard to believe, well, it's kind of hard and easy to believe that we're a year in. And just to kind of pool the room, if you would just type a word in the chat to describe how you're feeling right now. Be nice. And some coffee. Somebody's excited. Okay, I'll take excited. Like a duck, pressed, busy, 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 stressed. Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to great things. Optimistic. Yes, love it. Love it. Hopeful. Enjoying my last day of summer. Okay. Confused. Okay. Okay. All those feelings are very, very true and warranted. It depends on where you are in the process and your outlook and your perspective on everything, right? And so, as I state to many of you when we talk on the phone, what we never want you to do is stress, right? So we're in this together. We're going to get through this together. So not today, but in the future, we are actually going to have a representative on our calls from EdPlan just to gauge and help us navigate through the trying times or the difficult times that we're having as it pertains to data collection and reporting. Someone will be on the call with us. We're going to talk a little bit about indicators 11, 12, and the very exciting exiting table 4 report, just to give you a brief update on indicators 8 and 14, reminders, and then we're going to open the pool up for you guys to enlighten us on some of your challenges and struggles that you're experiencing if we don't already have it on our radar, okay? But I can assure you that we will get through this together, one day at a time, one report at a time. So, from the Ed Plan side, when you're working on your reports in the AR, there are the submission report, there's the submission report, and then there are also some reports that's embedded into the system to help you validate your data or make corrections as we transition through these collections and reports, right? The ask of us is that you do not alter the submission tab. It is very important for our processes, for our macro, when we are downloading your individual reports and combining them back into one aggregate report, that those spreadsheets remain exactly the same. Okay. So that's why we ask that you do not alter the submission tab. You can operate within the cells in that spreadsheet, but do not add, remove, delete any rows or columns from that spreadsheet because any addition to that spreadsheet will alter our formula when we're merging it into one aggregate report. Remember, please do not email your reports to us. Those reports do contain PII, and we have to remember that we need to protect the student's identity. Okay. Um, your submission, the reason that we're kind of going through this process this year is I want you to get in the habit of submitting your reports by going into the federal report submission and attaching it or uploading those documents to us. Because as we transition through these reporting processes, that date will become the date that order will use to pull your data reflecting accurate and correct for the ODS system at the state level. Once that data is in the ODS, as we move forward, that is where your official report will come from. Okay, so it's very important that we get in the habit of routinely uploading those reports because that date will be the date that they use to pull the data out of your system. into the ODS for our reports. If you have students on the spreadsheet that should be removed, we don't want you to delete them. Just send those state ID numbers to the Special Education Services email folder, and we'll get it from there. Please remember, you do not need to send us an email telling us to take off those students who are outside of the reporting year. We will mass remove those reports. So any students that's on your report that was previously submitted or counted on last year's report, we will mass remove those from the state level. So any students that's on your report and they are for COAST, if they exited prior to July 1st of 2024, they will be removed. Likewise for Table 4 and also for indicators 11 and 12. So any students that's on those reports that were reported previously on the 23-24 report, we will mass remove them from the state level. Remember to always submit a Zendesk ticket. We like to think that everybody's problem is the same, but there's always that unique instance where your situation may be slightly different from somebody else's. So I think that the best way to counter that is to always submit those Zendesk tickets to at least put it on their radars, unless you receive an email from Katie notifying you of a specific reason and not to do it, okay? Remember that any corrections that you make in Ed Plan, those changes are not visible until 24 hours after the fact. So, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. To our enriched districts, remember, enriched districts only are the only ones whose final submission are submitted via ADT because they're in a separate system, okay? So if you are a district that is using Ed Plan, your reports should not be submitted via ADT. Only those districts, and I believe there was 6 of them last year. One of those districts were simultaneously using Ed Plan and Enrich. So kudos to that district for working both of those systems at the same time. For indicators 11 and 12, we recognize that there is an issue with the grade levels. So don't worry about correcting those for indicators 11 and 12, simply because depending on where you are in the new year rollover or publishing your data, those grade levels is going to be kind of wonky. So we have to at least wait until we get everybody on the side of the new year rollover and the publishing. So we have to get all of the districts on the same page, and that's when the grade levels will appear. So don't worry about that for 11 and 12. If you have any test schools on your report, once you download, double check to make sure that those test schools are not appearing on your reports. They should not, but if they do, let us know, but also submit a Zendesk ticket so that they can make sure that those test schools are not appearing on your reports, okay? And remember, all corrections should be made at the source. If you are unable to make a correction at the source level, please submit a Zendesk ticket so that they could talk you through this process. And that's a question that was confirmed with them on yesterday. Okay. Okay. A little bit about indicator 11, what this actually applies to 11 and 12, using the stop process, okay? And more in particularly our students that are transferring within the 60 days, okay? So we had a conversation with them on yesterday where we finalized these things. And so we did want to pose it out to the field so that you are aware of how this process is going to work for the students who transfers, okay? So if you have a student that is transferring from your LEA to another LEA, okay, within the 60-day timeline, okay? So if LEA1 gets the T for transfers if it's within the 60-day, and LEA2 gets a C if it's complete, if the transfer is completed within the 60-day timeline, okay? Um, and you must, and if you are the receiving district and you need more time, you must notate how much time is needed to extend. What we don't want you to do is create or obtain another consent to evaluate. That is incorrect practice and process, okay? So if you have a student that is transferring in and you need time to extend, you must get that, do that PWN and get permission to extend the evaluation and indicate how much time you're going to need to extend, okay? As long as you do that, you will be with you're compliant. You won't get dinged for that, okay? However, if LEA1 is overdue when that student transfers to LEA2, then LEA1 gets the OL, and I did not change that, so I need to change that before I send it out to you guys. LEA1 will get the OL because it's late, and LEAB will get the T because they're receiving an event or an evaluation that is overdue. And the T's are excluded from the report, so there's no penalties for the T's. But you do want to make sure that you add that in either the note or the comments, okay? In Enrich, it was comments. In EdPlan, I believe it says notes, but that is where. So if you see notes or if you see comment, that is where you need to put your description in there to tell us what we need to do. Okay, that's going to help us with those decisions. Likewise, if a student is withdrawn for homeschool, and we'll talk about this a little later, actually on the next slide, give some more expanded reasons in those instances that just because the students are leaving or withdrawing, you are still expected to complete those evaluations within the 60-day timeline. So just because they're leaving does not exclude or stop that evaluation in those instances. And so homeschool is one of those instances where you as the LEA would still be expected to complete the evaluation if they're being withdrawn for homeschool. In addition to that, once again, if the student is in the evaluation process, do not obtain a new consent for evaluation. You must continue with the evaluation. And if a student is leaving with these exit reasons below, then you are expected to continue to complete that initial evaluation. And those instances are if the student is transferring within the district, right? If they're being withdrawn for homeschool, for juvenile corrections and adult corrections, maybe not. But if you do, you are expected to complete those evaluations. If a student is being expelled and in the middle of the initial evaluation, you are still expected. And also for those students who are transferring to charter schools. Okay, so these are instances where students are transferring or being withdrawn from your system where you would need to continue that initial evaluation. Okay. For indicator 12, oh, I forgot the big one.
Change that
Because
date to where it's not due tomorrow, it's due August 8th.
I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
God.
Somebody's talking, it's not muted. I'm sorry. Um, we'll have this corrected by the next meeting, I promise you. So because we just finalized some changes for the report to assist you guys with the reports, we are giving you an additional 2 weeks to submit that report because we want to make sure that you are confident and comfortable with what's coming through in your system and what's being submitted to us. So we're giving you an additional 2 weeks to just review and kind of relax and also for Andrea, because Andrea is still trying to work her way through indicator 7. So we're going to give you an additional 2 weeks to review these reports. We met with them on yesterday and provided some additional clarification to some logic that was causing errors to appear on your reports where they should not have been. And we are told that those corrections should be deployed tonight, which makes it available to you on tomorrow. If you are able to see it tomorrow and you make corrections tomorrow, we won't get it until Monday. So because of how the system delays with corrections and the flow of the process, it just makes sense to give additional time for those reports so that you can work your way through it. Okay. So indicators 11 and 12 are now due on August 8th. For indicator 12, on your BabyNet Factors tab, there's a list of options, and the very first option on that list says NA. Anytime you select NA, you must add a comment. The system does not automatically tell you that you need to put a comment in there, but you need to have a comment in there. So you need to let your teachers know that when they're in the system, or your psychologist, when they're in the system and they're selecting these options, that they need to put the comments into the box. Likewise, some have selected NA and one of the other BabyNet options that's listed. Okay. It can't be both, right? But if it is, or if you have a unique situation or instance, put that in the comment to help us decipher how to report that for that final outcome reporting code. Okay. Um, for our summer birthdays, okay, there's a lot of questions that says, okay, the student turns 3 during the summer, the IEP doesn't start until the next school year, which means they have a future dated IEP. What we are going to look at is, if that meeting date occurs, the meeting date must occur before the child's 3rd birthday. If the meeting date occurs before the 3rd birthday, it will count as on time. Okay, so we're looking at the meeting date. Otherwise, it's an OL. Okay, so that would be a delay on the district if the meeting date occurs after the child's 3rd birthday. So as long as you're meeting, it's okay to have a future implementation date for the IEP. But if that meeting date occurs after the child's 3rd birthday, it is an OL, and that is similar practice to what we've done in the past. Okay. For those instances where the parent declines C2B services, um, if there's you want to make sure that there is a note or comment that notates that the parent is declining services. And as long as we see that the parent is declining services, we're going to remove that from your report. The entire row will be removed from you, excluded from the report. Okay. So you don't have to worry about those, but we do need to see that the parents decline services. The way the system is set up right now, there's no other way. So this has to be a manual removal from the report. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the stop process that you will see for indicators 11 and 12. Um, Stop process is another way to help keep you compliant in instances where the parent fails to produce the child. If there's no reason to suspect a disability and you do your PWN, the meeting date stop. The meeting date stop, not the IEP start date. Okay, so those on that stop process screen, or the parent revokes consent, give us a little bit of information in the note or the comment section to help us understand why. In the stop process, it will create something that's called a non-eligibility date. That non-eligibility date will also stop the clock. Okay, so that's going to help keep you compliant. But if you select those options, and you can see the first 4 are ODs, which is a parental delay, or P if the child is deceased or passes away during the process. Okay, so we have to get in the habit of using that stop process. It's another way to help keep you compliant in those instances where you're having difficulties with the parent producing the child, or just some of those unique instances that causes a delay. That stop process, once again, will create a non-eligibility date that will be taken into consideration to stop the timeline, okay? Now, if you create that after the child turns 3 or after the 60-day timeline, you will be assessed an OL unless you have some other extenuating circumstances that's listed in that comment to help keep you compliant, okay? Table 4, okay? We have also extended the due date, the submission date for exiting Table 4, simply because there are some things that's going on as it pertains to the New Year rollover, or whether it be publishing your data and it flowing through, and also where your graduated students, the graduated students' information went during that process, okay? So these are known issues that between SCDE and the Office of Data and Research Analysis, they are working together on a solution to fix it. But I can probably tell you that until everybody has gone through the New Year rollover and publishing, it's kind of going to be a gray area. So we're hoping that in this time that they are able to work it out to give you proper or adequate time to at least review what's coming through to us for your submission on the 22nd. I hope it's enough time, but if not, we will revisit closer to that date and make a decision if we need to give you additional time moving forward. I will tell you that if you had students that left your district during any time prior to the New Year rollover, so those students who exited throughout the year, those students should be fine for you to one, look at that Table 4 exiting report and look at that modified reason tab. If you don't have any students that's apparent on your report that where their exit reasons needs to be modified, kudos to you. That's what we want to, ideally, that's what we want to happen, right? So you're making those corrections as you progress through the year so that when you get to your final submission, there is minimal corrections that you will need to make, okay? Exiters prior to the New Year rollovers, and that's what I was just talking about. You want to make sure that you check that need to modify tab. And I believe we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. Okay. Couple of reminders for exodus, right? So the student must have been enrolled during the July 1, 24 through June 30th, 25. They had to have been enrolled and present or active on the first day of school during the previous year. So if they were enrolled and active on June 30th, 2024, and not active in or in special education on the last day of the current year or withdrew, which is June 30th of 2025, those are the students that would be on this exiting report. Okay, so we have to work to ensure that the logic is actually taking all of these things into account. And so not so much for you as the LEA, but for us at the state level, we are your last line of defense when those students are outside of that parameter to make sure that they're excluded from your report, okay? Please make sure that your graduates, your students that receive the high school diploma, and your students that receive an employability credential, please make sure that they are coded correctly. We had some issues with that last year, and we ended up having to extend the deadline to give districts an additional opportunity to get those credential students and graduates added to their official Table 4 report. We learned from experience, okay? So your exiting Table 4 report will be your indicator 14 report for the 25-26 reporting year. So we want to make sure that we clean it and get it as close to accurate as possible, okay? And like I said, your Table 4 report will become your indicator 14 report minus those kids who are moved, known to be continuing. I can't remember all of the options, but there's a list of options that are excluded from that Table 4 report, but we will talk about that when we get closer to indicator 14 during the 25-26 reporting year, okay? for table 4, you do have to look at your blank fields for some of these students' demographics. We should not have any, but in the event that you do, you want to make sure that those are corrected at the source level, okay? So if a grade level is missing on your report in Ed Plan, you want to make sure that it's actually, you know, that correct grade level is in Power School, and you have to give yourself that or interface leadway, if you will. So it's not gonna, if you put it in today, you're not gonna see it today. If you put it in today, you probably won't see it until tomorrow or 2 days. I think Power School has a different cycle, could potentially, I'm not 100% sure, but either way, you have to give yourself some time to allow the information to update an ed plan. Okay. For our adult ed exiters, okay, and or reasons unknown, okay. If you do not modify their exit reasons, they will be reported as dropouts. Okay, so I want to be clear about those students that are unknown. There's a adult ed tracking GED code in Power School. There is an adult ed diploma code in Power School. So your dropout, they could have left your district, and you received records requests on those students after they left, and you removed them from your system. You didn't know. You want to double check those these dropout does impact your report and your district's dropout data. So if you get updated information, make sure that you go in and change those codes. If it's a dropout when they leave and nothing changes, then you don't have to do anything, just leave it as is. But if that student went to adult ed and they got their GED, you want to make sure that you update that code to modify their outcome to reflect that they received a GED, or even if they graduated with a high school diploma. You want to modify those exit reasons for those adult ed students so that it is accurately reflected. Once you modify the reason, that is going to override the Power School exit codes that's coming over from Power School, and allows Ed Plan to update it and report the correct outcome for those students, okay? And Yolanda, get ready. Because our next slide is going to be the Power School mapping codes. This slide actually contains the official exit codes and reasons for Ed Plan, for IDEA. These are the only 7 code, 2, 4, 6, 8 codes that we use for federal reporting for IDEA. And I know Power School has a large list. So our next, not slide, but the Yolanda is going to share her screen, and I'm going to talk through how those codes are converted to these 8 codes that you see on the screen for table 4. Okay. Let me stop sharing. Yolanda, if you don't mind getting ready and share your screen.
Is it sharing?
I can see it. If you can
Okay.
zoom in a little bit, that'll help. Kind of.
Okay. Let me scoot over. Is that
Oh.
large enough?
I don't see it, so hold on a second.
Well,
I am not seeing her screen.
well, let me stop sharing and I'll come back.
Okay.
What about now?
And,
I can see it now.
what is going on?
Alright,
Your
hold on, let
computer?
me
Yeah, it looks like everybody else can see it too.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm just
and this is fine.
I'm not sure. Somebody's not muted. Wendy, you're not muted, or okay, thank you. Hold on a second.
It's small.
That's all right. All right. So the first column is basically the code. First 2 columns are the descriptors and the exit codes from Power School. Okay. The third column is how how we will map those codes in Ed Plan, okay? So you see where those codes, the ones that I showed you earlier that needs to be modified. These are the codes that will most likely appear on that need to modify page. Your withdrawn unknown status will be automatically converted to a dropout. So if it is automatically converted to a dropout and that changes, you get the records request and that child is actually in another district somewhere, then you want to make sure that you update it to say move known to be continuing or transferred out of district, move known to be continuing. So in column C, those are the codes that, or that is how these codes will be mapped in Ed Plan for your table 4 reporting, okay? So you can see if the student is withdrawn or expelled, those are reported as a dropout. But if for some unforeseen circumstances that changes, you have an opportunity to override what is showing on the Power School side. We have seen instances where Power School had the student listed as a dropout, but the student actually received a diploma in another district. So you have to do due diligence to make sure that the codes that are reflecting on the Power School side accurately reflects the outcome of that student in Ed Plan, okay? I know this is a lot to digest at this late time of the year, but we are still in the process of having those conversations with Ed Plan to that this works. Now, our enriched districts, this doesn't necessarily applies to you, but you want to make sure that your outcome codes are correct as well, simply because we knew that there were some issues on those reports on the enriched side. So you want to make sure that you are actually adhering to those enriched processes that we had when we were using that system to make sure that your reports are correct. And I know I've been talking a lot. Let's see something. Okay.
I've been
I'm
keeping
gonna-
I've been keeping
I'm-
track of the questions for you if
Okay.
you want to wait till the end.
Let's, we're about 30 minutes in. Let's go ahead and take some questions as I transition my screen back
Okay.
to see if there are any questions from the floor.
And as I read these, participants can unmute themselves if they want to elaborate. The first question we got in the chat was from Nicole Adams, and she's asking, do you want us to send you our test students that are showing up on the reports?
I think that's twofold, right? So we don't want to include students on your report that should not be there, but I'm also telling you don't take them off. So if I'm telling you don't take them off, I need to know who those students are, or at least what the name of that test school is, so that we can take them off. In addition, you need to also send a Zendesk ticket a Zendesk ticket to tell them to remove that test school from your reports in AR.
Okay, the next question was from Amanda Martin. She's asking, the charter school wouldn't continue the evaluation?
Pardon me, I'm not
She's,
sure.
yeah, if Amanda Martin wants to unmute herself to elaborate that question.
Yeah, it was back when you were showing the chart that said that we need to continue the evaluation, and it
Mhm.
was talking about if they were homeschooled, DJJ, like that.
Gotcha.
But then at the bottom it says that charter school, would we not treat them like any other district and let them continue the evaluation?
Right, but I'm saying, charter school, if maybe point of clarification, if that charter school is in your district, there are some districts that have a charter school as a district within their district.
Got
If
you.
that charter school is in your district, then you would continue. But if they're transferring to one of the charter or schedule of South Carolina public charter, then they would continue with that process. So
Thank
good
you.
question. Good question. You're welcome. Thank you, Amanda.
All right, the next question was from Lisa Lipscomb. So every BabyNet student needs a BabyNet factor selected, not applicable, or another option.
If you have the not applicable along with, let's say you have two options selected on that page, right? If it's not applicable, it can't also be one of the other options. If it's not applicable and you're selecting that, you need to tell us why it's not applicable. Okay. So basically the fix or the correct would be either leave the NA and tell us why it's not applicable, or deselect the NA and leave the second option displayed.
Okay, the last question in the chat is from Mary Moore. She's saying, Ed Plan will not allow me to run table 4 because I need to modify an exit reason. I have tried to modify the exit reason by following the instructions that we were given, but there is not an option to modify using these instructions. I have had a help desk request in Ed Plan for a couple of weeks, but the issue is not resolved. She's asking if anybody else has had this issue.
Um, I think if you are not able to modify the exit reasons, because you're supposed to be able to, you're gonna have to submit a Zendesk ticket. I am not aware of anyone having any issues with modifying the need to modify tab, but if you are, submit that Zendesk ticket to them so that they can investigate and see what's causing that.
Okay, that was the last question in the chat. Are you able to share your screen again, Lynn? We're not seeing anything. There you go.
Okay, so we're back. 1 second. I don't know my page went, but anyway, okay. So just a few quick reminders about indicators 8 and 14. So we are, this has been a journey. Oh my gosh, you guys have no idea. But if you are one of the reporting districts for 24-25, please send some sort of news blast out letting your families know that those surveys are legit. It's not a scam, it's not a hoax, but we are really trying to get their information. I've received feedback from a couple of parents saying that their child did not have a disability, which was a little odd, but nonetheless, I don't know if those were email addresses that was attached to the wrong child, but there was a couple. Now we will give you the results of what the parents are saying, but we will take off any identifiable information from that. So the surveys are supposed to be anonymous. And so if there's something that transpired in your district, we do want to give you an opportunity to correct or address any things that may hinder your process within your district. So the postcards actually went out on June 30th or the week of June 30th. And I've been emailing the families if they had an email address in the system. So as it pertains right now, I'm actually blocked. I've sent too many emails out. So I have to decrease the number of emails that I'm sending per day to for the surveys. So it's going to take me up until next week, next Tuesday, to get all of the emails out. The survey closes August 31st, so they'll still have time to get it done. And our districts highlighted in yellow are our enriched districts. So it is a work in process. I think we have about 1,000 responses returned thus far, and tons of postcard returned for insufficient mailing address. But that's just the nature of the beast. Those things will be. But if you would let them know that those surveys that they're receiving are legit, and to complete them if they should receive it. Okay. These are our survey links. We try to provide the families with multiple languages so that they can maneuver through and give us their feedback. For our 25-26 reporting year, these are our reporting districts. So I want to give you heads up of what's coming down the pikes. And so because our information is flowing over from Power School, please try to make sure that your family's addresses are correct in Power School, so that we are assured that we're getting the correct information to send out the surveys. And if they have an email address, try to get that as well. Email addresses is a really, really quick way to get those postcards to get the information out to the families, okay? Indicator 14, and I have to apologize because when I was sending out the email on yesterday, I thought that my email was delivered to you guys with today's PowerPoint and presentation, but it was stuck in my outbox because I had met the quota for the day. So I do apologize for that. And I realized after the fact that I did not send the updated results to you guys. So I will try to get that out to you on Monday. My sincerest apologies for that. I thought I was on point, but I wasn't. If you are having issues with determining what codes are missing, I have been tracking the original signed codes and those that are where they actually completed the survey. So I can easily tell you if you're struggling to determine if you're missing a code and which one it is. There is a number of districts that are still completing surveys for the students that was moved known to be continuing, or that was not on your table 4 report and you did not tell me that they needed to be added back onto your report, those are being removed. So you want to make sure that you are not contacting those families for those students who did not appear on your table 4 report. It's one of the growing pains that we discovered in this process last year. So it is the reason in which we will be using the actual table 4 report moving forward. So we won't have to do another extraction. We're just going to use the final table 4 report. Remember, do not use the student ID. Please use the survey codes, which consist of 4 alpha characters and 4 numeric values. We don't want to use the student ID number, not to mention parents probably, it's 11 digits to remember, and that's just a bit much. So please make sure that you're not using the student ID numbers to complete student ID numbers or the son's ID numbers. I will say that there's a population of families that are using codes that I don't know what it is or where it came from, but thankfully I do have the required information built into the survey, so we're still able to use their information as long as they select the district. Yeah, remember, do not contact students with exit reasons of move known to be continuing, or those who are not of age and those that were not on the table 4 report. If you're keeping keep track of your list, and remember that your exclusions or the reasons to stop attempting to complete the surveys would be 3 attempts, no answer. If the child is deceased or if they don't want to participate, it will automatically stop the process, but these are not included on the in the response rate. Okay. The survey closes on July 31st for indicator 14, and then we're going to send that information over to the vendor. And I wanted to include the formula for you so that you will see. So it's actually the ones who that returns not applicable divided by the total number of students in your source file. And you have to have at least a 50% response rate to get the additional bonus point that will be added onto your FY24 determinations. Okay. Our meetings will be on the 4th Thursday in each month. So our next monthly meeting will be August 28th. I did want to include our systemic verification checks in here. I will tell you that one of the new processes that's coming down the pikes, if you are not 100% compliance on indicators 11 and 12, you will be required to participate in the systemic verification check. And that is because we have to do an updated data pull to make sure that you are sustaining compliance if you're not 100% compliant. So we will require the districts that are not 100% on indicators 11 and 12, we will require them to participate in the systemic verification check starting this year in November or maybe February, because it's going to take us some time to get through both reports. So probably starting in February is when we'll implement that practice. Okay. I've sent the new meeting link out already. If you have new people coming to your district, it doesn't hurt to share it with anyone. I'm not opposed. The more areas we hit or the more people we hit with the meetings will help us. If you should be on on my list and you're not, please contact your district's technology coordinator to add you to the role of special education data reporting manager. That's who I send my my information to. That's who I include on my list. So if you are not there, start with your district's IT department to add or remove anybody that should not be there and add those people who need to be added. I update my list once a month. So if you miss this month and you get added into the system, rest assured that I will catch you during the next month. As always, we will drop the PowerPoint, the final PowerPoint in the resource location. So you could get to any resource that we have for data collection and reporting. We try to put it all out there just so that you can have it at your fingertip at any time. And I think that's about it. It's our contact information. Remember to send all of your questions, your inquiries to the Special Education Services folder. We all have access to that, and it helps us if someone is out and if you send it to them directly, there may be a delay in their response. But if you send it here, one of the team members will respond to you in a timely manner. So that's the method to our madness, and we will open the floor if there are any additional questions, concerns.
Yeah, and participants can unmute themselves if they'd like to ask any questions at this time.
I would say, do we have anybody that's feeling a little better? Or I've just added to your frustration, confusion, and busyness? Okay. It's moving kind of slow. Okay. Oh, we got a better. Okay, I'll take better. I'll take it. Okay. All right. With about 12 minutes to spare, if there are no other questions or concerns, we thank you for joining our monthly meeting, our July monthly meeting. And as soon as we get it converted, we will add that in our weekly updates so that you can have, it does take a little time sometimes to get it converted and back. But as soon as it's converted and ready for you, it'll be posted, and we will also share it in our weekly updates. Okay. If not, take advantage of those extra weeks for the submission. If you're going to take vacation, take vacation. Remember, we don't stress. First rule of thumb, we don't want to stress. Just contact us. We will talk through it, and we will do our best to get any issues that you're experiencing resolved in a timely manner. If not, have a wonderful rest of your day.